Hey guys, this is going to be a spoiler-free review of the full Dark Tower series by Stephen King. The main 7 books at least. The Gunslinger, The Drawing of the Three, The Wastelands, Wizard in Glass, Wolves of the Kala, Song of Susanna, and The Dark Tower. I've only read 4 of the graphic novels and have not read Wind Through the Keyhole yet, which apparently doesn't hold much weight within the series as a whole anyway, so it's not all that important to talk about. Keep in mind during this review, and especially while reading this series, that this was written over several decades. The first book was written throughout the 70s and published as a whole in 1982, and the 7th book was released in 2004. The Wind Through the Keyhole was released in 2012, and the comics series is still ongoing. Really, what I'm going to be giving you in this video is an overlook at the general ideas within this whole series, not spoilers for the story itself, but a look into the universe in which this takes place, the characters, the purpose of it all, and some of the themes and ideas that run throughout it. I really just want to reiterate that there are no spoilers in this, but more like background information that I hope will kind of make you interested in reading the series. The core of this story is the main character, Roland Deschain, and his journey to the Dark Tower. Roland is the last gunslinger. He's from a place called Gilead, and is the last in the line of Arthur Eld, the ancient king of all world. Arthur Eld is like the equivalent to the legend of King Arthur in our world, and maybe even be the same person. Arthur Eld was like the king that united and ruled over all of all world, and whom Roland descends from. And all world was once split into 3 different regions, in-world, mid-world, and end-world. But now, in the present, all world doesn't necessarily exist, not in the way it used to. Nowadays, the whole world of this world in which the Dark Tower exists, Roland refers to it as mid-world. Gilead, where Roland is from, was a place where gunslingers used to be raised and trained. Roland's father, Stephen, was the Din, basically leader or king in this context of Gilead. A gunslinger passes his guns, the real guns of a true gunslinger, onto his son when the time comes. And Stephen's guns, Roland's guns now, are the guns passed down the line of Arthur Eld. Roland's duties to protect this world and the Dark Tower. The Dark Tower is described as the nexus of all time, all worlds, all of existence. The Dark Tower exists as a physical tower, only here in Roland's world, mid-world. It's usually represented by something else, in other words, like a rose, for example, but the Dark Tower is the center of everything. It is what holds all things together. Imagine surrounding the Dark Tower, surrounding all of existence, are 12 points, like a clock. At each point is a guardian, for example, the bear and the turtle, or the wolf and the elephant. At the center of existence is the Dark Tower. Extending from each point to the point across it are beams. These beams go from point to point, all centering on the Dark Tower, and the beams are what hold up the Dark Tower. But the beams have begun collapsing. Because of this, Midworld is described as having moved on. Time is slipping, places are getting farther and farther apart from one another. The worlds, Midworld especially, are becoming more chaotic. Things are changing. And because the Dark Tower is actually a tower in Midworld, because the beams are actually noticeable, these things are happening in a big way there and affect everything. Animals and people and plants and things are becoming mutated. For example, animals that haven't been mutated are so rare that they're called something special, threatened. All of this, time slipping, places getting farther apart, the world's falling into chaos, make it very difficult for Roland to get to the Dark Tower. At the beginning of the series, he's already traveled for countless years, and it's only getting farther and farther away. But he must go there. He's absolutely compelled to get there, for reasons explained slowly throughout the series, and he will do absolutely anything to get there, sacrifice anything and anyone. Before I go into that, there's a concept repeated over and over again throughout the series that you need to know about. Ka. Ka is, to put it very simply, fate and destiny, but it's much more than that. It's duty, what must be done, what draws a person, what protects a person, what kills a person, a life force, the thing that draws someone and keeps them, the path itself. Roland must find his Ka-Tet, those who are connected to him through Ka, and that's what a Ka-Tet really is, people that are connected intimately through Ka. And Roland had a Ka-Tet once, a group of friends he grew up with in the Gilead, fellow gunslingers, that were with him on his path to the Dark Tower when he was younger. But when we first meet him in the first book, he's alone. Roland meets many characters along the way, and we eventually come to discover the members of the Ka-Tet. And I don't want to spoil anything about any of these characters, not even like their names, and not even like how long they last within the books. You'll see it all for yourself when you read them. But on his journey, he meets a young boy killed in our world's 1977 New York that somehow ends up in Roland's world, a heroin addict from our world's 1987 New York, accessible to Roland via a door in Roland's world marked with the words, "The Prisoner." an African-American schizophrenic woman bound to a wheelchair because both of her legs are missing, accessible to Roland via a door in his world marked the Lady of Shadows. And Oi, a billy bummer, a common animal in Roland's world, a sort of mix between a dog and a raccoon that repeats what people say, sort of like a parrot, but is actually like more conscious of what it's saying and what's being said to it. These are some of the main characters within the series. There are many surprises involving them, what happens to them, where they come from, and how they connect to Roland. So now that you have a sort of understanding of what the series is actually about, here's what each book individually, again, without spoilers, does for the series. The Gunslinger. This book is difficult. It's sort of like a fever dream, like a mirage in the desert that you want to grasp at, to feel its realness, but that you never quite can. I find this book to be really the closest to poetry that Stephen King has ever gotten. It was built up originally through various short stories King wrote in the 70s. They were published separately and then are put together in this first book. And it's important to remember that while you're reading it and to realize why this book is the way it is. King really figures stuff out as he goes along. He builds his character slowly, his world slowly, and his ideas are like floating fragments in a thin ray of light in this first book. It's an introduction. It's a hazy, moment-to-moment, constant flow of imagination that it's being built up into something more solid right in front of you. Believe me, please, when I say there are many reasons this book is the way it is. Later on, you will see that. Trust me. I read this book 4 times before I decided that I loved it. Now it's probably one of my favorite books of all time, and the only beginning that could really possibly exist for the series. Now that I finished the series, I can see that clearly. The first line of this first book is, "The man in black fled across the desert, and the gunslinger followed." This one is focused on that exact thing, Roland and the man in black. The second book, The Drawing of the Three, continues at first in a sort of similar vein, but then focuses itself. This starts off with that hazy feeling and then kind of shifts in tone more and more as it goes along. It's like a portal fantasy, but backwards. Roland finds these 3 doors on a beach, each marked differently. First the prisoner, then the Lady of Shadows, and lastly the pusher. These doors lead into various different times within our world, into the minds of people living at different times in New York City. It is a ridiculous amount of fun to see Roland in our world, to see his reactions to everything. Like in Midworld, paper is very rare and it's often not seen anymore, and it's everywhere in our world, and Roland's people are very proud, very honorable, and he feels not so impressed by the people in our world. He reacts to the smells, the sounds, the technology, everything, and he does so while introducing us to some really, really interesting new characters. The third book, The Wastelands, follows Roland and those that Roland was successful bringing into his Ka-Tet, trotting across the wastelands of Midworld. They come across an abandoned, broken, post-apocalyptic city and deal with its inhabitants, good and bad, their rituals, their daily lives, and kind of attempt to learn the mysteries surrounding a sentient, sociopathic killer train that might just love riddles. The fourth book, Wizard in Glass, is basically one long flashback to Roland's past, tied probably for my favorite book in the series with the last book, though this was definitely my favorite until I read the last one. It details the friendship between young Roland and his old friends, his old Ka-Tet, and the beautiful, affecting, like life-altering love story between Roland and a girl named Susan Delgado. Like I said, most of this book is a flashback, which is weird at first. It's sort of bookended by present time stuff, like on either side of the flashback is present stuff, but 90% of the book, and it's a long book, is that in-between past stuff. Throughout reading it, of course, I was like, wow, is this entire book in the past? I'm not sure how I feel about that. And then by the end, I was like in love with it. I loved everything about it, really, and I wanted more of that past story because it's really only ever hinted at what comes next until the comic series. I've only read 4 of these so far, and the first one is basically a fast-paced recap of the flashback story within Wizard in Glass, and then the following comics kind of show the story that's only ever been hinted at, and I am loving it. It is so awesome. Finally seeing some of this stuff and how it actually is played out, it's really fun. I would say for sure though, do not read these comics until you've read Wizard in Glass, because the very first of them will basically ruin all of Wizard in Glass for you. The 5th book, Wolves of the Kala, involves the town Roland and his Ka-Tet come across, in which every person born there is born with a twin. It's a town of all twins, but these creatures, which the town refers to as wolves, come once every generation to take one of the twins from each set. After a little while, those twins that were taken are then sent back to the town with extreme mental and physical issues. This book and Song of Susanna begin to introduce something to the series that continues throughout the rest of it, something that just adds so much to the universe this takes place in, the ideas the series is working with, and to the story itself. It introduces something that we've been blind to really during the rest of the series, but really brings it all together. I obviously can't talk about these two books a lot, but they include various characters from Stephen King's other work, these vampire-like creatures called the Low Men, various connections to our world, along with many, many other things that I obviously can't talk about, but holy crap is there a lot. And the last book just brings it all home into an ending that I just think is one of the best endings I've ever read for a series. So those are the books. As for the rest of this video, let's talk about the characters for a second. They're amazing. They're all involved, important, all well put together. And for me personally, I'd say Roland is just one of the most well-written characters of all time. He cares deeply for things and people and his world, but has to put the dark power above everything, above himself. He's proud and he's intelligent and he's deadly. The supporting characters that are part of Roland's story are people we grow to love, even Oy the Billy Bumper. Roland does things he has to do, whether he feels it's right or not. Because what's right is the Dark Tower. The tower is his Ka, his everything, but that's not the whole point of the story we're reading. The ending for me is literal perfection, but the journey is what the book is about. The journey is what the story is. We get these things about the tower, the beams, time is slipping, places are slipping, things are moving on, but the Dark Tower is something that's always in the background, always a haze in the distance. You'll wonder when the heck he'll get there, like, does he ever get there? And what the heck is with Roland and this tower anyway? But Roland's journey, that's everything. That's the point. It's an adventure through and through. This story combines elements from so many different genres: fantasy, sci-fi, western, post-apocalyptic, adventure, romance, horror. It's dark and it's fun and it's crazy and it's so fucking weird. It's unbelievable how great and truly weird it is. Stephen King has created a universe in which literally anything can happen. Anything can happen and anything does happen. Huge, sprawling, desolate landscapes mixed with weird advanced technology, fantastical creatures and people, awful villains that just drive you crazy. And that's another thing. Oh man, the villainous characters throughout the series, the opposers, they're great. There's the Man in Black, who's surprising all the throughout, to say the least, in what he can actually do and who he actually is. There's the TikTok Man, Blaine the Mono, the Witch Rhea, the Good Man John Farson, the Wolves, the Low Men, Mordred, and above all, the Crimson King, and those that work for him. There's interesting magic and places and a sense of language all its own. You read these books and the language of this world, partly the mutilated dialect of those that live in it, partly the high speech, as Roland calls it, really gets to you, it moves you, it fills you up, it takes you from the inside out. And that's what the story does as well. That's what the characters do. They get into you. I still can't stop thinking about the ending and about the series as a whole. As you may or may not know, almost every Stephen King book, and you know he's written a lot, has some sort of connection to the Dark Tower series. There are a few books that have a very specific, very big connection to the series, some more so than others. Keep in mind, I do not believe it is necessary for you to read all or any of these to get a full enjoyment from the actual series, but it for sure could add something for you to see those connections. I've been asked to give a sort of ideal reading order for these books, the connected books within the Dark Tower series, for maximum effect and understanding, if you so choose to read it that way. That order is The Gunslinger, The Drawing of the Three, Stand, The Wastelands, The Eyes of the Dragon, Wizard and Glass, Salem's Lot, and you can also begin reading the comic series here, and you can read The Wind Through the Keyhole here as well. Wolves of Kala, Insomnia, The Talisman, Black House, which is the sequel to The Talisman, On Writing, Song of Susanna, Hearts in Atlantis, It, and finally, The Dark Tower. Those in bold are especially important. This is just an order that may help you best understand all of the references. This is just a suggestion. These can all be read before, after, during, at any time, or never. Other books that have connections are 11/22/63, Bag of Bones, Cujo, Lizzie's Story, The Regulators, and just a bunch of others that have small connections like places and such. There's a full list of connections, which I don't recommend looking at until you finish the series online. Overall, these books are just beautiful. Stephen King's writing is at its best. He thrives in his other work with certain styles specifically. The books where he writes in entire towns with the people, makes them feel real and full, and brings the town completely to life, such as Salem's Lot, Needful Things, Black House, Bag of Bones, Under the Dome, etc. Then there's the opposite sort of style, in which he gives an extremely personal, detailed look into the mind of one person and how they, as a human being, function in the life that they have, such as The Shining, The Dark Half, Lizzie's Story, and Duma Key. Then there's the epic story, like The Stand, or 11/22/63, or the Dark Tower series. But the Dark Tower series is different. It's everything that Stephen King is good at, all wrapped up into one. He does things that no other writer could get away with. I wrote in my Goodreads review for the very last book in the series that we as readers tend to value unique stories, imaginative storytelling, one-of-a-kind characters, some unique plot or place or perspective that is completely specific to that story. Give two authors the same basic idea and they'll do two totally different things with it, resulting in two totally different books. The Dark Tower series is a story that could have literally only have ever been written by Stephen King within the exact time frame in which he wrote it. This becomes more and more evident as the books progress. It is, without a doubt, one of the most unique stories I've ever read, and I love everything about it. I think that's everything I really have to say. This series to me is perfect. I love the themes, I love the characters, I love the world, I love the story, I love the writing, I love the journey. It is not for everyone. I can promise many people will quit after the first book, which I can understand, but I ask you, if you do that, come back later and try again. Move on to the next, and then to the next. Take it in. Just take it in. Give in to its unwavering weirdness. Give it a shot. It'll take you to places that you've never been before and will never go to again. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Long days and pleasant nights.